Hey guys, just a reminder, this is not official medical advice. For such, please seek an appointment with a licensed medical provider. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Dive Into Diet. I'm with the star of the show, Lucas Schmidt. Lucas, man, it's so good to see your face.
Hey, you too. Been a bit.
It's been a few weeks since we've recorded, so you doing well? It's sunny here in North Knoxville. You're in Johnson City right now. How's the weather over there?
Sunny. Yeah, same. It looks nice.
Well, I'm excited about today's topic. One, because we're at Performance Medicine huge fans of the GLP-1 class of medications, the Ozempics, the semaglutides, tirzepatides, Mounjaros. Andy and Bo did a recent episode of Explain This on, kind of just dispelling some of the myths around that class, because we think there are a lot of myths. You want to come in and talk about, the lifestyle and nutrition plan for these medications. You're obviously doing this in your consults. Let's kind of walk through it. I love this topic, so I'm glad that you brought it up today.
Yeah, it's actually pretty straightforward. Honestly, there's not going to be anything in here I think that'll be a surprise to anyone who's taken a remote interest in their own nutrition or exercise. So it's really the same lifestyle that you would take if you're not on them, or should take, not that you will take. Okay, this is what you should be doing. But being on either of those drugs, tirzepatide or semaglutide, because they slow. Generally, there's some subtle differences between tirzepatide and semaglutide, but the general gist is they stabilize blood sugar, slowing gastric emptying, thereby inhibiting how much food you can eat or how much food you want to eat. Because if you overeat on any of these drugs, generally, there are exceptions to that rule, but most people they don't feel good. And that's kind of how they work. They condition you not to eat as much. Your portions shrink, and hence enormous weight loss ensues. Which is fine, which is great. Now, my concern when someone is on, this isn't to say you shouldn't go on it if you're trying to lose weight. This is something to look out for, and it's well shown in the research, and it's considered normal, mind you. This is not abnormal. This is something we can expect. When you lose weight so rapidly, which these drugs are known to cause, and you're eating such a lower volume of food, you can expect muscle loss. That's sort of the number one, in my opinion, downside of being on these is that you lose some muscle. But I will say, even healthy weight loss can cause muscle loss. Even non-assisted weight loss, like you're just doing diet and exercise, you could probably lose some muscle that way. So the first thing, actually, before food that I recommend people do that's why we're calling it lifestyle, is to lift weights. If you're going to go on either of these drugs, in my opinion, if the FDA ever came out with regulations specific for this, and I know there are some already for semaglutide, but they're still relatively new drugs. I actually think it should come with how some drugs come with what they call a black box label, or certain cigarettes come with it. This will cause cancer, like the blah, blah, blah. Yep. I think there should be a label on either of these drugs that says strength training is required for optimal effectiveness of this drug. That's just my opinion, because you don't want too much muscle wasting. So to counteract that, it's lift some weights consistently, at least twice a week. That's it. I mean, once a week's better than none. Okay.
Right.
But the optimal weight lift schedule is 3 to 4 days a week. That's optimal. Now, if you're going to go into extreme, 5 days a week, I never recommend someone lift 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Ever.
Need a rest day.
Yeah. Listen, there's pro bodybuilders that only lift 4 days a week. People don't know that. Now, that's not as common. Usually it's 5 or 6. But even the pros, like sleep and rest days are as crucial for muscle growth as the work. So that doesn't mean you can have 7 rest days all the time in a row. But stress of the muscle followed by rest is sort of the formula for muscle growth. It's an oversimplified formula, including sleep. Sleep is crucial. So developing even a light strength training routine This doesn't mean running on the treadmill. This doesn't mean riding a stationary bike or an elliptical. This means lifting weights. There's a difference. Not that cardio, I'm not going to discourage you from doing cardio on these drugs. I'm just going to say that's good for your heart and maybe your legs a little bit. But no, we're talking resistance training, pushing weight, pulling weight, squatting weight, whatever you got to do. We've got some strength training podcasts. You can look at those. Or if you're looking for like really detailed scientific explanations of excellent strength training protocols, I highly recommend Renaissance Periodizations channel on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Mike Israetel. He actually went to ETSU. I just learned that.
That's cool.
He's in a gym. He shows you how to do, that's a side shout out to Mike Israetel. But all that aside, to me, diet's very important, of course, but if you're on tirzepatide, that sort of forces your diet to, at least with caloric restriction, to happen. That's sort of the point. You've got, in my opinion, to lift weights. So I think anybody, whether they're on the drug or not, should be doing strength training. We've talked about that before, but it's so much more important when you're on a GLP-1 to prevent that muscle loss. So then you're just losing fat. So The next component is dietary. Again, this is something everyone should do anyway, but emphasis on nutrient density skyrockets, like the need for that when you're on a GLP. And the reason is, as we know, the whole way these drugs work is they lower how much food you can eat in a day. That's I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the long and the short. You are not eating as much food. So what that means is the little food you're able to eat needs to be packed with nutrients, because otherwise you get nutrient deficiency. What does that mean? That means every meal you eat should have some protein in it. Or snack. Everything, in my opinion, should have protein in it, whether it's 5 to 10 to 20 grams. That's tough on you can't eat a lot when you're on these drugs. So you got to get that protein in your day. And the next sort of tier down or equal would be nutrient dense, like the little micronutrients, so like fruits, veggies, things like that. There's not a lot of room for junk food on these drugs. You eat one bite of cheesecake and you're on Ozempic, you can't eat anything else. You're done. It's like, well, my meal's gone. So you need to think of it like I have a ration, I have a limited space in my body for food, especially on this drug. Like I cannot eat past this amount. So what I put in this tank needs to be really good quality food. If you want to optimize your weight loss and all the wonderful effects that people derive from semaglutide or tirzepatide, that, in my opinion, is what you got to do. Does that mean you can't have any junk food in the week? No. Sort of the magic part of these drugs is people say, I can eat whatever I want and I still lose lots of weight. I'm like, well, yeah, you can always eat whatever you want, but you're not going to be optimally healthy if you do that, even on these drugs. But What that does mean, that's the cool thing is, say on a Saturday night you go out with some friends, yeah, you can get a brownie or a cheesecake once, and you're not even going to be able to finish it. But you can enjoy it and taste it and go, I've had what I want. And that's great. I'm not going to say you can't do that, but through your day-to-day, you should really be trying to meet a quota of protein. And you want to know that quota? We've gone into it before. At least 0.8, you can run this equation, 0.8 times your weight in kilograms. That's really low. That's the minimum to avoid malnutrition, okay? To me, the best protein amount is 0.8 times your weight in pounds to calculate how many grams of protein. And if you're building a lot of muscle, which you probably shouldn't be on a GLP-1 if you're trying to build a ton of muscle, like that's your goal, you should be eating a gram per pound you weigh, which is a lot of protein. So that's to me the most important things lifestyle if you're on these drugs is strength training, nutrient density. If I had to summarize 2 words, 3 words. Strength training's a phrase. Strength training, nutrient density. 2 principles. There you go.
Lucas, I love that, and I haven't heard it in like that, like those simple terms. Like that's easy. It's like, okay, you have a certain allotment of food that you're going to be able to eat during the day on these medications. You need to be super efficient with it.
Yeah.
And you have no wiggle room, which is, again, kind of the whole point, Yeah,
these drugs work because, you're full after 2 bites. 3 bites.
Yeah.
And I would much rather those bites be a piece of steak or a piece of chicken or an egg.
Yeah.
Because an egg is packed with pretty much trace amounts of almost everything you need. Like one whole egg.
Are you seeing any, like, because obviously, people take different doses of the GLP-1s. Obviously, there's like a maintenance dose. There's, depending on what your goal is, still the same mentality.
The mentality should never change, especially if you're on these drugs. Nope. That's a good question. I would maintain that mentality. Also, the nice thing about that mentality is if you ever come off the drug, you should now have an established schedule of how am I looking at food and I'm lifting weights.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
I love it. Lucas Schmidt, thank you for hanging out with me today, man.
Thank you.
Guys, as always, we will see you next time on Dive Into Diet.
Don't go away.